afternoon or good evening, or more afternoon when the sun right. Today's second item is subject task force, June 24th, it's 6:42 p.m. We are starting now. Okay, ground rules. No one may speak up to the rest of the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Raise your hand through Zoom, click the participants icon. You will find the raise hand function there. Members should not engage in a back and forth discussion. The chair will recognize the next person that speaks. The chat should not be used to discuss or pose questions about agenda topics. All such remarks shall be made on the record. Please keep your questions and comments brief and on topic, particularly on topic to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subject of the agenda, please raise your hand and wait to be recognized. Now go with our roll call.
Have 9 members here for this sheet here, 5 for quorum. Jose, excuse me, Jose Alvarado,
Present.
Leslie Colon,
Present.
Rosa Diaz,
Excuse.
Jennifer Meyer, Nilso Rama,
Excuse.
Beverly Pavone,
Present.
Asher Rodriguez, Jason Villanueva, Candy Vives Vasquez. You only have 4, don't have 4 at this time.
One screen? That's on the screen? No. No. Yeah. He's gonna be on that. He might swap out. You wanna be on for that? Oh, you're on. Also on it. No, we have 9, no? I just started. Well, you're on it. There you go. You have an audit, you found? You think it's a dog? Okay. This is right. This is muted.
It's not, so it's taking a bar, so okay, so this will hook you up. Alright, so Ash is here, now you have 1.
Perfect. We're going forward then, forum. We are adopting tonight's agenda, approving the minute. By admission, no against. Perfect. Do we have any announcements? No announcements? Okay. Alright, so then we are going to start tonight's meeting with our public hearing. We are going to have a public hearing on any community concerns regarding the Second Avenue subway, the construction. Do we have any members of the public here for that public hearing?
Don't have any concerns up to see everything.
Oh, okay. Anyone else that no, going online?
Jose, can you guys hear us?
Sounds like ways on point, so the questions.
Hold on 1 second, it's gonna be a little bit about.
We have one person and
Who's asking if we can? Yeah. Someone did ask.
we can hear you.
Okay, it's hard to hear you guys.
Volume 55.
Yeah, today, for some reason, I guess, the software wanted to. Yeah, right, so, shame on me. Can you hear us properly?
I just heard you properly right now, but I wasn't I couldn't hear what you guys were saying before.
Sorry, Elsie. Okay, so our tech is being a little bit weird. We just went through call to order and roll call. We have quorum. We're gonna start the meeting. Everybody, please speak up so that this
Just turn on
device
mic. I'm gonna turn on my mic.
that's gonna create a double feedback.
Let's see.
And it's gonna mess us up.
It might be a little. Let's see.
It does or it doesn't. I know what this, it would. Yeah, okay.
All right, so we're streaming tonight. This is a no, in regard to the MTA. Yeah, we're raising our voice. I wanna make a note of that. Elsie, can you hear us now? I apologize, the honorable
Volume 80.
council.
Elsie's fine, Jose. Yes, we can hear you now.
And we had someone else speaking, this is our public session. We had someone with their hand raised, I saw the name Mac, I don't know if that was a first name or last name. We have a Dimitri Katanas. Dimitri,
Yes, sir.
you had something to say about the Second Avenue subway?
I do. If,
Please.
okay, so good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Dimitri Yatanis.
Which,
Sorry.
all right, just give us 1 second, maybe raise the.
Dimitri, go ahead. Say it.
Okay, so my name is Dimitri Yatanis.
Volume,
Sorry, Dimitri. Go ahead.
volume 100.
Okay, I'm an advocate for East Harlem's small business community. My family's roots in East Harlem go back to the 1940s, and we have owned and operated businesses in this community since the 1950s. As a result, I have had the privilege of watching this neighborhood evolve through generations of change, investment, and growth. I want to begin by making something very clear. I support infrastructure investment. I support safe railroads, modern transit systems, public projects that improve the quality of life for New Yorkers. At the same time, I'm a strong supporter of small businesses and the communities they help sustain. In my view, the success of major infrastructure projects should not be measured solely by what gets built. It should also be measured by how well we protect the communities and the small businesses that help make those projects possible. East Harlem is currently experiencing two major infrastructure projects at the same time: the reconstruction of the Park Avenue Viaduct and the expansion of the Second Avenue subway. Which is the subject of tonight's meeting. Both projects are important. Both serve legitimate public purposes. Both promise long-term benefits for New Yorkers. But they also remind us that every public improvement has human and economic consequences. Some businesses are displaced and forced to relocate. Others remain in the place but endure years of construction barriers, blocked sidewalks, traffic disruptions, reduced visibility, noise, and declining customer activity. For many small businesses, these challenges are not temporary inconveniences. They become existential threats. More than 50 years ago, Congress recognized these realities when it enacted the Uniform Relocation Assistance Act of 1970. The principle behind that law remains sound today. Businesses and individuals displaced for projects that benefit society as a whole should not suffer disproportionate injuries as a result. Congress got the principle right. The question is whether the law has kept pace with the modern economy. The cost of relocating and reestablishing a business in New York City today bears little resemblance to what it did in 1970. Commercial rents, construction costs, insurance, labor, utilities, and all regulatory requirements have all changed dramatically. East Harlem is becoming a real-world example of why these issues deserve renewed attention. As New York and the nation continue to invest in transportation, energy, and other infrastructure projects, I hope policymakers will take a fresh look at whether our relocation laws adequately reflect today's economic realities. The question is not whether we should build, we should. The question is whether we can build in a way that preserves the small businesses and neighborhood institutions that give communities like East Harlem their character. Infrastructure and small business preservation should not be competing goals. Strong communities need both. Thank you for your time.
Do we have anyone else that'd like to speak in our public session?
Can I say a few things?
Please,
Honorable Chair.
please.
Thank So well, good evening, everyone. I do want to say that I'm a little surprised at how little amount of people are here to really speak on this issue. I encounter constituents every day, just about, that are approaching me about the Second Avenue subway, what's happening at the Second Avenue subway, and how it's impacting their daily lives. I also want to preface my comments with the fact that our community does understand the significance of this project, and we do recognize the transformative potential of this expanded transit access. But we have growing concerns. Like was just mentioned, we are talking about the impacts of construction on our neighborhood, on our small business community. And I'm going to try to hit the major points, and I'll, if there's a way to submit like a full testimony in writing, I'll do that as well. But our small businesses are just struggling, even though this is just the beginning of what is going to be a 10-year process. We have seen immediate reduction of foot traffic, obstructed storefronts, noise, dust, uncertainty. We're not talking about large corporations with extensive resources. These are family-owned businesses, neighborhood institutions, entrepreneurs, and they cannot absorb these losses and just wait for relief. We have to come to the table, and I'm asking the MTA to really come to the table and develop tangible, immediate solutions that help these businesses survive during construction. We cannot have vague commitments. That time has passed. Our merchants need meaningful support, clear communication, and a concrete plan that addresses the challenges that they're facing today. In addition to the economic impacts, there's quality of life concerns. The stretch between 115th and 116th Street and Second Avenue on the east side of Second Avenue is pitch black at night. It is unsafe, and it raises legitimate concerns about public safety. I need to see a plan that is developed to implement improved lighting and address these concerns. We also seeing debris accumulated around construction zones, and whether that's left behind by construction activity or if it's just caught within fencing and barriers, the result is the same. The neighborhood is looking neglected. And there has to be a comprehensive daily cleaning plan for construction sites and the surrounding areas to ensure that the streets and the sidewalks remain safe, clean, and welcoming. Accessibility is also a serious concern along the whole of Second Avenue, but particularly I have seen around 106th Street, buses are often unable to pull fully up to the curb because the construction related conditions. Sometimes this is parking from construction site workers. Sometimes this is cones that are just left there, but the buses are not pulling up to the sidewalk. And our elderly riders, our people with wheelchairs, individuals with walkers or baby carriages, they have to navigate the street to get to the bus, and some of these kneeling buses are not kneeling to the passengers. I have seen this with my own eyes, and it's just unacceptable. So these are just some of the concerns that I'm hearing from constituents. There are a ton more, but I'm really, really concerned about how we really step in and have tangible solutions for our businesses. I understand that there are a number of spaces like this created to hear concerns, but we need results. We need an action plan. I need something that I can go back to these businesses. I have done a walkthrough with the congressman. I have done a walkthrough with the chair of the small business committee from the city council. Like, we are actively trying to figure this out, but I would like to hear what the plan is to mitigate some of these issues that, again, this is just the beginning of a very long process. And I don't want at the end of this, especially because we are supposed to be benefiting from the lessons learned in phase one. So we are supposed to already be starting at a better space. And I just personally do not feel like we are. So I just wanted that on the record. Again, if there is a way for us to submit something in writing, we will be happy to do so. And I thank you for your time.
The honorable councilperson. We would love to have your comments in writing. You can send it to me or Khalid, and we will share it with CMTA and the rest of the committee. We also have Carmen Jimenez, who has her hand raised. Carmen, do you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
There you go.
I just want to echo the concerns named by the council person or the person who spoke right before me and the gentleman right before her with regard to the impacts on businesses and the community. I want to speak from the perspective of somebody who lives on Second Avenue and has been impacted greatly. My quality of life has been impacted greatly by the ongoing construction in the middle of the night, very loud drilling right outside my window, no announcements of when this type of construction and hours are going to be taking place. And I can't see this happening for the next 10 years. It is very uncomfortable. It is not a livable, it's not a good way to live for anyone on this block. Thank you.
What block is that exactly?
So I am between 110th and 109 on 2nd Avenue.
Thank you again.
I actually live in the same building as Carmen, on the west side. So there's been water shutoffs and torn up sidewalks and construction happening since September of 2020.
I'm sorry,
Your name,
I'm sorry, I'm Bridget Lembe, not part of any political affiliate or anything, but a resident on that block. And they do construction. I wake up at 6 a.m. to get to work. Sometimes I don't get home till after 10 p.m. and I'm usually by myself. Sometimes there's very high, narrow corridors to get to my building, and there's people that aren't usually in the neighborhood hanging out there at night. There's a man who has posted up on our stoop in the front door. I have to ask him to please move so I can even get in and out of the door. He leaves his garbage, his smokes, his alcohol, his food waste, and his own waste right in front of our door. I never know what exactly is happening with the construction itself. Sometimes I open the front door and there's just an open pit in the mornings. We have several elderly tenants in the area, as well as business owners on walkers or assisted mobility devices. And some days there's just rubble instead of sidewalk. There's mounds of asphalt and tar that it's absolutely everywhere. Right now, there's just wooden slats instead of a sidewalk. ADA compliance is completely out the door on this particular block. And yes, the noise is nonstop. They work from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then 7 to 11 and then midnight back to 6 a.m. It never stops. And it shakes the building with the devices they're using, and it's so loud. I have, all sorts of earplugs to white noise and whatnot, but it cuts through all that. And it's been going on every night for 2 years. So just need some sort of transparency and communication with what's going on with this, because I know I'm not the only person that has to wake up early and work late, etc.
Thank you, Bridget.
Sorry, Bridget, how do you spell your last name for me, please?
LEPE.
Thank you.
I had no idea, so it's good to be addressed. Thank you, Bridget. Now we're gonna move on to Diana Lava Sabat. Hi, Diana.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Diana Larrazabal, and I have a business on 160th Street, right near 7-Eleven. And I also work with small businesses in East Harlem. I'm here because I'm very concerned of their situation. Many of these businesses are being blocked. Their entrance, people cannot actually walk safely going into a business. To go to a business, some of them, they have to go all the way to 1 block down and then come back on the corridor that MTA has created for them to enter a business. I think this is very unfair for small businesses. MTA knew of the construction years ago. The same as everyone that's been part of this project. And I'm really sad that no one took into consideration the small businesses. Like I mentioned, like in a previous meeting, if a business loses $100 a day, that's $3,000 a month. This is a big amount of money that a business is missing. And I was told that they were working on something to help businesses, but I haven't heard of anything going on. Businesses will offer services from SBS, which are grants, and businesses cannot afford grants. I don't really think this is the solution for them. I also let's say La Amistad, which is on 106 and 107 on 2nd Avenue, they're completely blocked. And that area, supposedly they're doing construction, but if you go there, there's never construction. They're only blocked because they have things stored in there. They're not blocked because there's construction in that area on that corner of where Chase used to be. So I really think MTA has to make it better for these businesses. Like, if they're not going to be doing actual work, if they're just going to have it as storage, why not use another location that they're not affected businesses? I also just sent a photo to Jose Altamirano. Today I was on 37th Street between 8th and 7th Avenue, and they're doing construction on the sidewalk. And they did a ramp for businesses for the entrances. And I really think that's something MTA should do in the small businesses in the 2nd Avenue. I don't know if Jose could see it and he can share it with you, but I really think this is a solution for small businesses. There's just especially between the block of 109 and 110, those businesses are in a horrible situation. The sidewalk is in a
Diana, how did you send it to me? Text, WhatsApp, email? I don't see anything. Diana, you muted yourself.
WhatsApp. I sent it via WhatsApp. And I think
Got it.
like I said, the conditions between 109 and 110 businesses are like in really bad condition. The sidewalk is really bad and it's unsafe anyone walking there. And for them to build this type of ramps going into the business will be a lot safer for everyone and probably will make it more inviting for people to go to a business. And just wanted to share this, and hopefully there's a solution soon, not a year later, but at least a few months later. Thank you.
Diana, we got your picture. We're gonna see if we can put it up on the screen so everyone can see it. My comments are to LC regarding the turnout for the public hearing tonight. So this was my idea to start this. Initially, it was to do a bigger one. We figured we'd start by doing them in the beginning of these meetings. You know, we did put up a social media post and did multiple email blasts, but we'd love if, you know, we're gonna plan on doing these moving forward. So maybe we could share our posts with you and you could put it up on your socials as well, and we'll see if the other electeds are willing to do that. And, you know, maybe even ultimately host a joint public hearing dedicated specifically to this. My second comment is regarding the small businesses. I know the MTA is gonna start meeting with some organizations to look into other ways to help and see what they can do. The other part of this is, you need to go to your state electeds. We've been reaching out to them. They have the ability to introduce bills, and they have, but I don't know how hard they're pushing to get financial assistance for these small businesses. So I know you said you represent businesses in the community. I don't know if those businesses are directly impacted by this or not, but especially if they are, it would be helpful to put that in writing, get a petition, send that specifically to your state electeds and your congressperson, really your state electeds, your state senator, your assembly person, and urge them to really fight for these bills to get funding. And it's going to be difficult because it's going to require the other state senators and assembly people that have nothing to do with this community to decide to support putting money specifically into something that helps us. But that is one avenue, and I'm frankly surprised that our electeds have not been pushing harder to do that. So maybe they're going to need a nudge from all of us. That's another route to take.
Diana, we're putting your picture up now so they can see what you were talking about. You should be aware, I'm not sure if there's a confusion, but typically grants received tend to be Renewal grants. I think you may be confusing it with maybe a loan or something else. But typically, a grant for a business,
You don't pay it back.
you don't pay it back, basically. So if you see a grant, you should be aware that they tend to be forgivable for the most part. Most of the time, you hear a grant, so that is actually in the business's best interest. I'm not sure if there's a confusion or maybe it's a loan or something else. But just to keep that in mind, but we can talk offline off of that point. I am showing the picture you sent me. We did a walkthrough today, right before this public session for quite a bit, and we walked the entire length of the construction site with the MTA. And they have implemented a new wooden plank system for 109th and 110th, which is a significant improvement to what was currently there. We don't have a picture, but we can probably. Yeah. Send to colleague.
I'll send it to you.
Let's move on. Anyone else here for the public session?
Just have one more thing.
Sure, of course.
Here.
Bridget.
Bridget Leve, yes, up between 109 and 110 West Side. I remember earlier on, there were always flyers posted, I think it came from this community board about what was happening, because I know not everybody gets these emails or have signed up for the email announcements for what's happening each week, but there used to be flyers saying, you know, there's gonna be overnight or it's gonna end this time. It was like a schedule of sorts, a couple different languages posted, and I feel like that reached.
That wasn't the board.
It wasn't? Okay, I haven't.
It was like it was up to you, yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen that in a while. I thought it might be useful for people who aren't aware of the email list distribution that way.
Perfect. Thank you, Bridget. We have Teresa Pasquette. Teresa?
Sure, good evening. Can you hear me?
We do.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my hand. So yes, my name is Teresa Plaskett. I currently live in the Bronx. However, I grew up on 107th and First Avenue, and my mother, who is 90 years old, currently still lives in the same neighborhood. So many of the residents that live in Franklin Plaza, 1199, East River Landing, etc., they're seniors. And crossing that Second Avenue is perilous. The pavement is torn up, it's unleveled, and is difficult to navigate, and it is unsafe for anyone who has mobility issues. There was a resident, from what I understand, that had a rollator and, the ground was unleveled, etc., and they fell. So, with that said, as we're looking at supporting the neighborhood globally, if there is any conversation about leveling areas, making safer crosswalks for seniors and everyone who needs to get from the east side over towards the west side, just to ensure that everyone is in their community and is able to navigate safely. And I guess also a question that I have had as I've considered the work that's going on is that the Second Avenue subway, that the first phase really started what was 63rd to 96th Street. So there are learnings and information that came out of the build of the Second Avenue subway some 10 or 15 years ago. And I would hope that the MTA and our elected officials are implementing those learnings from the first phase of this project so that all communities that are impacted by this work are safe, that they feel heard, that they feel that they are supported as this disruption continues for over a decade. So thank you so much for hearing my statement, and I do hope that the interventions and the conversations that are being had in these small groups will definitely amplify to ensure that the work is done in a safe and considerate way for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
To people speaking from the public, the MTA is in the room with us. If you're virtual, they are noting all your comments. We're not going to ask them to respond to them today because some of these are the first time they're hearing them. They're aware of all these issues, but we will get responses to all your concerns, and we'll find, we'll get back to you. I don't know how we'll get you to all share your information. They can put their information in the chat, please. Is there a way to do that? There's no way to do that.
But they can just
Reach out to the office, call the office, send your contact info, and then once we get the answers to your concerns, we can reach out to you directly with that information. Or Joe.
Well, what we can do too is we can, when we respond, we can write up responses to a lot of the questions we hear tonight and some of the that you posed already. And then we can put them in an archive on our website, so they can always, just like this presentation or any of our other presentations are hosted on the website, you can go there and see older presentations. There will be, a document repository with folks.
Looking at the queue.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that sounds good, thank you.
Now, with that, do we have any other public speakers tonight? See any other hands? Now we're gonna move forward. Alright, so we're gonna move forward. Diane Collier, did you have your hand up? Diane, did I see your hand up? That's nice. Okay. Then we're gonna move forward. All right. Perfect. All right, Joe.
Oh yeah, you'd like. If you'd like, I mean, yeah, you can just.
All right, thank you, the Community Board 11 for having us here this evening, and thank you everybody who stepped up to speak tonight to share your concerns with us. We do appreciate it. Believe it or not, we are, not that we like to hear about the concerns and the issues that you are having, we certainly don't want this to be any unnecessarily impactful on you than it is, but it certainly helps us to do our job better by hearing about things either that we may not have previously considered or not understood are as impactful as they are. So we do appreciate you taking the time to bring these things to our attention. As far as tonight goes, we're here to present an update to the SAS2 task force from Community Board 11. We'll run through a little bit of where we are on the project, some of the issues that we've heard about in the past, and we do have some new information on some of the things that we're planning on in the future. Some of the issues that you've raised tonight, we've already contemplated. I hope you do appreciate that. Unfortunately, the MTA is a very large organization, and it's not exactly easy for us to implement new things sometimes. So even when we do have some great ideas from the community or great ideas from our team, it does take a little bit to implement. So we are working on these things. We would like them to happen a bit more expeditiously, as I imagine you would. So hopefully you'll see some results soon. Some of the results are, as Adem and Jose noted, were observed even as early as today or recently as today. For those of you in the room or even potentially online who don't know me, my name is Joseph O'Donnell. Joe O'Donnell. I am the Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives for MTA Construction and Development. We are the arm of the MTA that's building the Second Avenue project, Phase 2. I'm joined by Matt Zetwak here in the room, who is the project executive for the Second Avenue Subway project. I'm also joined by Desiree Gazzo, who is our consultant outreach director for the project management team, as well as a whole host of folks online. Next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about updates as to the major activities that are going on the project. We presently have 3 contracts working on the project. Contract 1 is in the 106th Street station area. Contract 2 is in the 116 and 125th Street station areas. Contract 3 was just recently awarded and started to mobilize in the contract 1 area in 106th Street. So as contract 1 is backing out of the area, contract 3 will be coming in, but more on that in a bit. So we're going to talk to you about major operations, like I said. So the test blasting and the production blasting that's going on at 125th Street, some of the other construction activities along the alignment, provide an update on signage, some details on the local hiring, our environmental program, and then obviously we'll open it up for questions and dialogue at the end, turning it back to the community board to moderate that. Next slide. So, as many of you are probably aware, we conducted a series of test blasts. There were 3 test blasts over a week-long period in the 125th Street and Lex Yard. If you can see on the screen in the lower right-hand side of the corner, the area outlined in blue is the entirety of our Lex Yard. Not only is that where our eventual station entrance is going to be, but it serves as an operating center for most of the work on 125th Street right now. The area in red is the shaft area that we are excavating using drill and blast methodology to break through the rock there. So they excavated down using traditional machinery down to the bedrock. Now that they've reached the bedrock area, they are going to use small charges to surgically blast through the rock there. We conducted 3 test blasts over a week period, as I mentioned, in the beginning of June, to confirm our blast plan, to understand the zone of influence that would be impacted by this blasting plan. It confirmed the efficacy and the safety of our blast plan. Because everything went according to plan, we moved on into what we call production blasting, which is now designed to start removal of the rock there, so that we could build out for the 125th Street entrance and then the shaft down into the cavern. So we did those 3 test blasts. We are now control blasting. The test blasting were controlled as well, but that production blasting is going to be very similar in size to the blasts that were conducted, or the blast that was conducted for blast 3. We stepped up the charges as we went through those test blasts to the 3rd blast, which was similar to what we're doing now for production blasting. And we'll continue at that level for approximately the next month to 2 months and understand what the production is of that size charge and whether we need to increase or we can decrease based on the production. There's a whole host of safety mechanisms in place that safeguard this blasting, not only for our workers who are right there on the site, but the surrounding area and the community. We have presently established a 65-foot radius for the zone of influence for this blasting. And then, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a series of events that are actuated when we are getting ready to blast. So the next blast is anticipated for Thursday around noontime. And when we get ready for that blast, there will be one long 10-second long horn 5 minutes prior to any blasting to signal that we're getting prepared to blast. 1 minute out, there will be 2 short signals, approximately 5 seconds long, that signal that the blast is imminent. And then there will be 3 short signals about 5 seconds long at the end of blasting saying all is clear and activities can resume. All of this blasting is conducted under the direction and guidance of FDNY. In fact, it is their personnel who do the actual blasting. They bring the charges to the site each day. And actually, they are the ones who effectively push the button on the blast. Next slide. This is again that same area, but with a little bit of a legend to show you what's going on in that area. So as I mentioned, the area outlined in red on this screen is the entrance shaft where we're going to be working in and doing that controlled blasting. The areas around the perimeter of that are what we call supportive excavation. So there was drilling and the installation of C-camp piles, and so those are concrete piles or pillars that are inserted there to prevent the soft earth from collapsing upon itself. So that's currently been installed here in Lex, and it's being installed at the Park Avenue yard a bit up the street, a bit west of this location. There is a shaft cover that you can see in number 3. The area is in green. So half of the shaft is currently covered with that cover, and it's peeled back to the right side of the shaft or to the south side directionally as direction goes, so that work can be done inside that shaft to muck out any of the materials that were dislodged during blasting. Number 4 is the crane that not only puts the blast cover in place, but helps with the removal of the excavated material. And then 5 in purple is that C-camp pile rig. So that's a big drill rig. You can see it going vertically, the black line up above the number 5 there, which is what helped us install those C-camps to support the excavation here, and similarly at the Park Avenue yard. Next slide. So on contract one down in the 106th Street station, the work there is currently to relocate the utilities. The two major functions that this contract is advancing are the utility relocation, and I know that some people mentioned lessons learned from phase one. This is the lessons learned from phase one because we understood that doing the utilities as we sort of got there in phase one created a whole host of complications. Despite our best practices or our coordination with our agency partners, invariably some of the plans that we got were outdated. They were 100 years old. They did not accurately reflect the subsurface conditions there. That resulted in a lot of problems or curveballs that we had encountered and had to navigate around, literally and figuratively. That results in extended time there, more impact on the surrounding community. So what we did was we pushed all of that utility work up front to get it out of the way. Yes, it's impactful, but it's more of a situation of ripping the Band-Aid off now so that we're not going to continually come back to impact electric, come back in a year and impact water, come back in a year and impact sewer. We're doing it all now to get it out of the way so that it's done, for the foreseeable future till the end of the project. And we don't have to impact the same community multiple times. So currently under contract one, they're doing that utility relocation. That also takes all the guts of the utilities out of 2nd Avenue proper and moves it off to the periphery so that when contract three comes in, they can do the cover operation there, which is going to mine and excavate from the surface down to create the running tunnels and the station in the 106th Street station area. It also upgrades the utilities in this along the alignment here for the next 50 years. We are fully funded, so this project is moving forward, but in the event that something happened and we weren't able to move forward, at bare minimum, contract one would have come in and upgraded the utilities for the residents of East Harlem for the next 50 years. Over at 2nd Avenue and 106th Street, there is overnight pile operations. That's the drilling and the installation of those supports of excavation that I mentioned up at 125th Street. That same work is going on over at 106th Street because not only are they doing the utility work, they're also shoring up the area for contract three and in fact shoring up some of the buildings. We've done an extensive pre-construction survey of the buildings in this area to understand how these buildings are going to react to heavy civil construction in the area. There's a lot of 100-year-old buildings, some on rubble foundations. So in those areas where the buildings would not react positively or in fact could react negatively to the heavy civil construction, the MTA is going in and upgrading and stabilizing those buildings and their foundations so that they can withstand the construction. Over at 2nd Avenue and 109th, which was mentioned a couple of times tonight, that is a hotbed of activity, much like what's going in and around Franklin Plaza from 106 to 109th. From 109th to 110th, there's a whole host of work going on there. There's a modification of pedestrian walkways and the overnight drilling and underpinning excavations, which again is creating that stable environment, but also creating stable buildings to be able to withstand the future work. Next slide. For contract two, which is a bit north of there, that's for the 106th Street station area. So what they're going to be doing, the crux of the work for contract two is the modification and remediation, retrofitting of the 116th Street tunnels that are presently there now from 110th to 120th. Those were built in the 1970s. For those of you who might be here, a previous iteration of this project when the project did run out of money and couldn't finish, and they left us a pretty good starter hole. So what we're going to do is be able to turn those tunnels into the new 116th Street station area. So now we aren't going to waste all of that effort and money that went into that. We're going to turn those running tunnels because back then they had envisioned a center track that would have been used to pull trains off in the event that they needed to do maintenance or if there was an issue. That center track now will be converted into a future center platform where folks will be able to use that to access either the uptown or downtown bound train. But if the space for us to implement that is already there. Along with that, retrofitting of the 116th Street existing tunnels, they're also going to be doing the tunnel boring operations from 120th Street north to 125th Street and then west all the way to west of Malcolm X Boulevard. This is also another lesson learned from phase one. because of the very vibrant commercial corridor that is 125th Street. You know, we had originally envisioned some of that work being done cut and cover. That's, you know, that's definitely more impactful than doing it with tunnel boring machines. The tunnel boring machines will be operating 80 to 100 plus feet down below surface, largely unaware to anybody who is above ground. But so we're going to be doing all the mining and excavation for the 125th Street station from those tunnel boring machines and from the controlled blasting within our yard, so that we minimize the impacts to the businesses on on 125th Street. They are presently doing C-Camp pile installation at 120th Street and 2nd Avenue. That is on the northwest corner, southwest corner of 120th and 2nd. We demolished 4 buildings that we acquired in that lot. One a bit west on 120th and 2 south, just north of 119th Street. 19th Street. So that yard is all cleared now, and they are beginning to excavate the shaft in anticipation of starting tunnel boring operations there in early 2027. Over at 125th Street, I referenced the controlled blasting and excavation that's going on at the Lex Yard. That's presently ongoing. Eventually, we will start controlled blasting first with that similar test blasting period at the Park Avenue Yard, and then rolling into the production blasting, provided there needs to be no modifications. That's probably late summer, July or August. We'll get to the work in the blasting operations in the Park Avenue Yard. And that blasting operations between the Lex Yard work and the Park Yard work will go on through 2027, either in both locations or eventually just in the Park Avenue side. Next slide. Over at contract 3, which is the brand new contract that is going to be mining and creating the tunnels and the station entrances, the structural shell, if you will. They're not going to be putting in any of the actual components or the guts of the station and the tunnels. That will be contract 4 after them. But they have already mobilized on the northeast corner of 106th and 2nd in the public plaza area that is outside of Franklin Plaza. We acquired a portion of that area, that space outside of Franklin Plaza's buildings there. And we have started to mobilize for the contract 3 work, which is going to eventually excavate for the entrance. It's called entrance 1 for us, which is at the northeast corner of 106th and 2nd. They're presently in there doing survey work to confirm. These are design and build contracts, and for those of you who may not know, the MTA takes the design to about 30%, and then they put that out for bid. We lean very heavily on the expertise of these contractors that bid these projects and eventually win these contracts, so that we can lean on their expertise and their know-how from doing similar projects elsewhere in the country and the world, to lean on the efficiencies to do this project better, faster, and cheaper with less impact. So we do it, we bring it to 30%, and then they take our design, they confirm our presumptions, and they advance that design. So that's what they're presently doing at the northeast corner of 106th and 2nd now. They've set up a perimeter work zone. They're doing survey work to understand the geological conditions there. They're taking out a lot of the shrubbery and some of the trees so that they can eventually begin excavating and supportive excavation in that plaza area. Eventually, we'll be doing a similar operation for entrance 2, which is at 108th and 2nd, where we've acquired a portion of the Franklin Plaza Associates parking lot. Approximately 12 spaces in that parking lot we acquired from Franklin Plaza. And in July 1, or July 6 right now, it was originally July 1, and Franklin Plaza asked us for a little more time. So after the July 4th holiday, we'll be starting to mobilize in that parking lot area for what we call entrance 2. Next slide. So for contract 1, some of the things, obviously, we've been hearing a lot about the business impacts. One of the things that we do have at our disposal is the ability to help with awareness of the fact that these businesses are still open, despite the work that's going on, and behind these barriers, which can often obscure the line of sight to these businesses from the street or the opposite side of the sidewalk, sometimes even the same side of the sidewalk if we have a protected pedestrian walkway outside of the fence line. So we originally had installed some signage. We had heard from the store owners, from the community board, from our elected partners that signage was not adequate from a size and awareness standpoint. So we went back to the drawing board. There was a redo of all that signage. I would say approximately 90% of that signage is up now throughout the contract 1 and contract 2 areas because we had to go back and replace what was up of the contract 1 signage and put in new signage, as well as advance the additional signage. Contract 2 signage rolled out a little bit more seamlessly because, again, lessons learned from contract 1, don't do the same things we did wrong there. So it was a little bit quicker and smoother of a process for contract 2. So that fence wrap is up. There's also in some areas of contract 1 temporary awnings that have been put up. We've worked with the business owners to design the graphics for those awnings. Because of the machinery that needs to do the supportive excavation there and or the support of their buildings, it's at a height, the machinery is at a height that impacts or would have impacted those awnings. So we temporarily remove those awnings and affixed temporary signage to the building, again, to help create awareness. And there's also wayfinding, especially on those blocks where there is a large density of construction operations along the entirety of the block, not just in spot locations. We've put up wayfinding signage which lists all of the businesses that are open on that block, both at the north and south or east and west ends, depending on where you're going directionally, of those work zones to let folks know, yes, I should continue down that block because that business is open. In contract 2, there are no impacts to awnings, so we don't have a similar issue with a replacement or temporary removal of awnings. We do have situations with fence wrap, so that installation is complete for all businesses in contract 2. Some of the wayfinding is complete and currently in progress. I know Diana mentioned some successes that she noticed down in the 30s of a project there, along with those pictures that you showed before were sidewalk bridges. And those are used to help people enter and egress buildings when there is the removal of sidewalk and trenches. It's a literal bridge for folks to get across, a gangway, if you will. So we do employ those when we need to, when we can't maintain access. But I thought you referenced some of the signage that was a bit more creatively done. We do have our current MTA marketing team working on a comprehensive, more thoughtful, more creative branding campaign, which will incorporate some of the businesses across the entirety of the alignment. We shared, a sneak peek of some of that with Dan and Jose today, and we hope to have more on that, as early as contacting some of the businesses that we want to participate in that program as early as the end of this week, with the idea of being able to start rolling that out before the end of July. So more to come on that. Next slide. Some of the local hiring conversation that we've had, we're in a unique situation on the 2nd Avenue Subway project now with contracts 2 and 3 being awarded. Those are the first 2 contracts on this project where we actually have the ability to have a local hiring goal. It is not a local hiring mandate. I want to just, be upfront about that. It is a local hiring goal where we are requiring the contractor to make a good faith effort to achieve 20% of their New York State local workforce from this community. And when I say from this community, there are several tiers. The contractor is first and foremost charged with trying to find residents or workers in the local area, and that's within 5 miles of the project. Tier 1 is the economically disadvantaged areas, which have been identified by zip code and where the majority of the folks who live in that particular area live beyond the median income level, and that can be upwards of 25 miles from the project area. And then there's Tier 2 economically disadvantaged, which goes out to a wider catchment area, including all of New York State. Just as a way of update, we currently get our numbers from the contractor a month behind because obviously they need to get payroll for a month to understand who works there. Then our DDCR team, or Diversity and Civil Rights, they confirm those numbers. They just don't take the contractor's word for it. So they get the payroll from the contractor, which is lags by a month. It takes them about a month to confirm. So right now we're working off of April numbers. And right now we have had 222 people hired from New York State on this project. And when we take a look, we distill those numbers down to the local catchment area, or what is being able to be applied towards this local hiring goal. 44 of those individuals have been identified as coming from tier 1 and tier 2. 7 of those from the local area, or that within 5 miles of the project, are from that local area. So a bit of ways to go. We're only about 15% into the overall contract, so a long way to go. We are currently hitting that 44 is 19.8%, or rounded up to 20% of that local workforce, or that local New York State hiring component. So we are presently meeting that number, but still more to go. We'd still like to see a better effort on the hyper local level, and so there will be more to come on that. Next slide. From an environmental standpoint, and I do know that we do have some of our environmental team on, so please either raise your hand or let me know if I'm mischaracterizing anything, but we do have a proactive monitoring campaign throughout any of the work areas. So for contract 1, eventually contract 3 will be taking over the existing monitoring and adding additional monitoring as part of that 116th Street station area. Contract 2 has installed monitoring, for the 116th and 125th Street station area. And we monitor for air quality, which monitors for dust, VOCs, and where, not 24/7, but where needed, if there is an operation that is to abate for asbestos or lead, we monitor for those components on a case-by-case basis. And then we also monitor for noise. We monitor for vibration, settlement to buildings. All of that starts with taking the ambient background levels for all of those various conditions within inside the East Harlem area, or proximate to the work area, to understand what that level is. And then there is an action level that is set to establish, there is what the background is, noise, for instance, plus, a certain amount of decibels. And if the contractor goes over that background plus, then there is a call to stop action, and we need to take a look at how we can do this more, with less noise. Sometimes, despite even working within those guidelines, and we follow guidelines established by the state agencies or the city agencies in the case of city noise code, that dictate what we can or cannot do from a level standpoint. Sometimes it's nuisance noise. It's underneath the level. We are in compliance, but it's still a nuisance, right? It's 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, so it's quieter out. The ambient noise is lower. People are trying to sleep. So we will work with folks. We will try to do that. We'll figure out ways to do that work more quietly. We'll try to figure out ways to shroud or encapsulate the work. If we hear from the community or the community board that it is unnecessarily impactful. Sometimes there are trade-offs with that. Sometimes we have to go to a smaller piece of machinery, and rather than the work taking a week or a month, it takes months or weeks or months because we're using a smaller piece of machinery that's quieter but less productive. So just again, in full transparency, sometimes there is a trade-off. One of the things that we've heard in reading the room is, there is a lot of questions about, folks are cynical, right? They don't know whether they can trust our monitoring data. So what we have done is we've reached out to CUNY, and we've asked their environmental experts to do an over-shoulder review of our monitoring program to understand, are we monitoring properly? Are we monitoring for the right things? Are we interpreting the data we receive accurately? Are we keeping the community safe? So we're providing all of our data to CUNY, who's going to be evaluating that, and we will share that report that we get from them, with the community board, and again on our website when we get that. So next slide. Again, this is the same one.
This should be the.
This just similar, but this just talks to the noise levels. So next slide. These are some of the questions and concerns that came up the last time we were here. There were some questions, and we noted today, even on the walk with Community Board 11 leadership. There seems to be, although it's eroding, the rightmost lane of 2nd Avenue is currently marked as a bus lane, even though all of the traffic was shifted to the east. So we are asking DOT to evaluate and understand whether that needs to continue to be labeled as a bus lane or whether it can be removed, because again, DOT is the agency having jurisdiction here. We were asked by Uptown Grand Central. We worked with a lot of the stakeholders in this area back in 2022 to do a visioning exercise in and around 125th Street and Park, to understand how what the community would like to see from an improvement standpoint. Because of the mobility hub is there. You have the confluence of Metro North, the subway, the bus network, all there. So there was a report that was done and submitted to the city. A lot of the improvements and the findings fell squarely in the court of DOT. So we are in the process of inquiring with the city if we can release that report. So more to come on that, whether we can turn that report off, even in draft form, to Uptown Grand. And of course, if you all would like to see a copy of that. No issue with sharing our relocation consultant or our colon with Community Board 11. I don't know if that's already been shared with you, but we can. If it's not, I cleared that with the real estate team. There was a conversation about connecting with UMES, the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone, to talk about, again, working with small business services in the city and some of the other groups here, 116th Street Block Association, Uptown Grand Central, Union Settlement. There are other organizations who may be able to help us move the needle. And to the council members' conversation, get a whole bunch of us to the table to see how we can more effectively move the needle to mitigate these impacts to small businesses. So to that end, I have a meeting on the 1st of July set up with leadership with UMES to talk about how we can work more collaboratively together and what other resources we may be able to bring in that regard. So certainly by the next task force meeting, I hope to have an update on that conversation and what some of the findings of that were. And then the translation of blast signs, we did incorporate the blast signs up and around 125th and Lex into Spanish as well. And I believe, I didn't tell, but we even incorporated a universal blasting graphic, so that it was non-language specific. I didn't know there was a universal blasting graphic, but now we have one. So, next slide.
You keys it online.
Oh, okay. So this is the entirety of the team. There's a whole host of folks who you can reach out to and communicate with. Obviously, I am with the MTA, as is Matt Zetwalk, who is project leadership. From the project management team, we have Desiree here with us tonight and Yuki online. We have our brick and mortar location over at 69 East 125th Street. You can walk in there 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and talk to any of our liaisons. We have dedicated liaisons for each of the station areas who are continuously walking in the area multiple times per week. Each of our contracts also has a dedicated liaison. So we had contract 1, Michelle Perez, for the 106th Street station area. Alejandra Cabrales for the contract 2 or the 116 and 125th Street station area. And Aislinn Speranza for the contract 3 folks. They are just ramping up. So there will be some overlap between her and Michelle, but eventually it will be all contract 3 come 2027, after the first quarter of 2027. I know there was also some, next slide, I think is that some of the ways you can reach us. No question. Well, some of the ways you can reach us, I know there was some questions about down on the lower right hand side, thank you, of the picture here. We do have a 24-hour hotline and we have a dedicated project email. We do send out weekly look ahead. I know you were mentioning that not everybody gets them. So every Friday around 3-4 o'clock, we send out specific to the work area. So 106th Street gets their own, 116th Street gets their own for the various contracts. Eventually, contract 3 went out as in an introductory fashion, just to let folks know that they were coming last week. But it explains what you can expect block by block for the next week. We do share those with the tenant associations and the tenant organizations, the community board, the elected partners, all of our key stakeholders as well, so that hopefully they can maximize our reach. We do go door to door typically. I know you brought up that there was some of that. So that was us early on to establish what was going to be going on there. If there's been a disconnect and you're not getting some of that information, we'll have our team redouble those efforts, especially we don't want to lull you to sleep. Hopefully you are getting some sleep, but we don't want to lull you to sleep relative to the construction. If there's a change in means and methods, if there's a change in hours of operation, then you should be getting new information so that it's not the norm, right? Something has changed. So you should be getting alerted to that. If you're not, you can reach out to me directly. You can reach out to our outreach team directly. You can reach out to these various 24-hour hotline and emails directly. And I'm looking at you because you're sitting here right next to me, but anybody, if you don't feel you're getting that information, our information is very comprehensive, but it's only as good as the people who are receiving it. We want you to receive it. So help us help you in that regard. And then I'll turn it back over to the task force to run through Q&A.
Right. It's a very comprehensive report. We've been meeting in this task force since February. That is now a few months. We have been very hard on the MTA, and they have responded in kind. Today's walkthrough shows a significant improvement in everything that we've done. We also have to take into consideration that previous leadership of the board should have been a little more hands-on with this project, having had this information from the previous year. But that's neither here and there. We're looking forward to kind of working together to make sure that residents are happy, the businesses are happy. We've been able to get now the businesses have significant more visibility when it comes to patrons. They have signage that's not only on the fence, but it's also on the top. So it allows them to a fighting chance at the very least. Do we have questions? We'll see Asher and Beverly, and then we'll go down the line. Ash.
Hi. So I'm gonna ask one question, then like my actual question. On 109th Street and Second on the east side, is that construction blocking off half the street? That's y'all, correct?
Between 109th and 110th?
Just on 109th Street, there's like looks like construction storage. That is it. Okay.
So west, on the west side?
On the east side.
On the east side.
Okay, well, okay, so now I will ask my question. So I walked by there around school dismissal to see some of the concerns that Dr. Christie brought up at the youth and education meeting. There's a
Ash, you mean 110th or 109?
109th.
I don't think they have anything on 109.
We do, right around the corner on both sides.
Yeah.
They're currently doing building stabilization on the east side, and then
We walked through it today.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there is two blind spots on either side when kids are trying to cross the street after school that they can't really see the cars coming before like the cars come. So I know that storage, and once again, like someone brought up earlier, could the storage be moved to a different area because it's really dangerous to cross. It's a wide road and half that road is cut off.
Yeah. So a couple things on that. So I'm happy to take a look at it. Any of our work zones, again, we follow DOT guidelines and stipulations. That first 10 feet of the work zone should not have any covering. If there's fence there, it should be open to create a clear line of sight, not only for pedestrians who are trying to cross there, but for vehicles to see if anybody's going to dart out, because not everybody, vehicles or pedestrians, obey the traffic signals, right? The walk or the lights. So that should be open and visible. Not to say that it's foolproof, but that if there is a line of sight issue there, that's certainly easily correctable, and we'll take a look at that. The other thing is, especially at 109th, there should be pedestrian managers, which are essentially crossing guards that are employed by the project to help navigate, especially during school entrance and dismissal. I know off hours they're not always there. We don't all, employ them 24/7, but certainly during the high water marks of entrance and dismissal of schools, they should be there to help folks navigate safely across that.
Well, I passed by also at 6 p.m. Like those schools have after school programs, so a lot of the kids do leave at around 6 p.m. So there's no crossing guard at that time.
So I know,
and on the east side, it's blocked off.
Yeah, so Tito Puente and Munoz School came to us and they had asked, they wanted, the first ask was, can we add more pedestrian managers, which are NYPD's version of the crossing guards, and the pedestrian managers, and they navigate or monitor vehicular traffic more. They have some limited enforcement capabilities, as well as more TEAs, pedestrian managers. Then we also had a conversation with them about the possibility of closing off 109th during pickup and drop off, as they do in some other high density school areas. That was a little heavier lift because we would need approval from DOT in order to close that block. So we have decided and agreed upon with the schools, we're gonna add more pedestrian managers there during the high water marks. We're currently working with them to add more pedestrian managers now, but also to understand their after hours operations as well as their summer operations, because those may not be consistent with the regular, school year operations.
Actually, over there, it will be the same because it's a summarizing site. So there's CBOs in there until about 6 p.m.
So those conversations are being had, but we'll take a look at those work zones too and see if something needs to be modified to make it more safe.
What are the hours that the cross guards are working? Because I know you guys are spending a significant amount of money on these
Right.
cross guards.
Matt, you know the hours of the pedestrian managers?
Yeah, it depends on the shift, but they're usually there till about 4 o'clock. And then we do schedule for late night work too, if there's planned work, but it only goes to 7.
Yeah, we'll double check. And
I should go chair of youth and education. So.
yeah, you referenced Superintendent Christie. She had not formally brought those complaints to us, other than the fact that they have probably come to us through Munoz and Tito Puente. And so I'm not sure which way it went up or down the ladder, but probably the same concerns.
Sorry, I'm tired of you. We're gonna go to Beverly and then down.
Hi, Beverly, how are you?
Okay, thank you for the presentation, a lot of great information. My question is regarding the blasting time, and I know you said you'll give warnings, but during that time, do you cut off pedestrians from walking during that time when you're actually doing the blasting?
So that was part of what we were monitoring for when we did the test blasting to understand the impacts. So it's been determined that they don't need to stop the pedestrians on 125th Street. I'd have to double check whether we're stopping pedestrians on 100 on Lexington, right adjacent to the blast. I'll double check that for you. But I know we have confirmed that we don't need to stop. There's no impact on 125. So pedestrians can flow freely on 125.
Going from east to west?
Yeah, I'm just trying to reorient myself because we go north and south on Second and then east and west we turn. So they can go east and west. I just need to confirm whether they can go north and south on Lex. We've also tapped into the city's notification network. So whenever we're going to be doing blasting, they send out a text blast as well to let everybody know who's subscribed to that network, that they may be entering a blast.
And would you be posting those type of notices on the streets themselves?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the hours of operation for the test blasting right now, or the production blasting, are 7 to 7. And we try to stay out of the rush hour periods of transit because of the proximity of the existing Lex line there, and the volume of people who will be coming in and out of the station. So we try to miss the high marks of that. So again, the production blast for Thursday is scheduled for approximately noon now. So there will be notice that goes out again, just letting folks know.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, thank you so much for allowing me to ask my question. Thank you, Joe. A comment then a question. During phase 1, I was one of those people that went to that MTA community center like often, and there was I forget the gentleman's name. He was always providing information to his community.
Yes.
I live on 100th Street. I would go down there, and it seemed like there was a lot more information being provided to the community with that center. I just want to make that comment. And my question has to do with what the honorable councilperson said as it relates to garbage and things of that nature and waste. And I'm chair of Health and Human Services. That's a big issue. She just said that in terms of, and one can say it's garbage and waste as a result of your folks, but then folks in the community have to go out of the way to with their own garbage and things of that nature. We just had the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene we just had a Rat Academy training last week, and it was a lost opportunity for folks. So many more of you should have come out for that. So that we talk about waste, we talk about pests and vermin and it's a matter of not just like the vermin just coming up because of the construction, it's because of the waste and the garbage and food materials, whatever that's left. So I don't know if you actually kind of gave a good answer or response to that, because it's a big issue in terms of the waste and garbage and sanitation. Are you in collaboration with DSNY?
Oh, yeah. So I don't think I tackled that. I don't think we provided a response to that because, again, we weren't necessarily going to address all the questions and comments tonight. We were going to sort of synopsize everything. But I'm happy to, as a point of this Q&A period right now, address it. So yeah, we work hand in hand with DSNY. We work hand in hand with Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. So from a Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, before we put a shovel in the ground, we walk the entirety of the alignment with Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to understand the prolific rat presence that is already here in East Harlem, right? Because one of the misconceptions is that the construction created the rats. That's not the case. We may have disturbed their burrow, and now you see them more because they're looking for a new place to live or new food. So there is that component to it for sure. So we walk with Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. We continue to work with Department of Health and Mental Hygiene because they oversee our rat mitigation program or our vector mitigation program. They tell us where we can bait, how we should be baiting, are we baiting effectively enough? They look at our work zones to understand, are our work zones clean enough, or are we creating a harborage for rats? If we are not storing our materials 6 inches off the ground in a neat and orderly way, then the rats are going to burrow under there and live under there. So we get dinged by the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene if we're not keeping our work zones up to snuff. So what I will do is, XYZ resident will call me and say, listen, I've got a rat problem that I never had. It's only gotten worse since you've been here. I'll ask Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to go out and investigate. The Department of Health and Mental Hygiene will give them recommendations on how they can improve their situation. But while they're there, they're going to inspect my people. They're going to inspect Matt's people and make sure we're doing, and we'll get violations or we'll get recommendations. We will get a report on how to improve those conditions. So we do work very closely with them. Similarly with DSNY, we work with them on a regular basis because, especially on 2nd Avenue proper, right, where we've taken up a lot of the frontage of those businesses or residents, they can no longer simply walk their garbage out to the curb. So we work with DSNY to identify catchment areas, typically on the side streets. So half of the block will go to the north, half of the block will go to the south and bring their garbage to those catchment areas. So DSNY knows where they are, so their people know to pick it up and it just doesn't sit there. One of the byproducts of that, the unfortunate byproducts, is it's larger volumes of trash, right? Because there's more people putting it in one location. Somebody breaks a bag, people are foraging for cans or things of that nature. Rats go in there for food because they know it's a buffet for them. So we are working closely with DSNY as a byproduct of our conversations with this task force. I reached out to DSNY, my counterparts over there. One of the things I asked was, when you do your street sweeping, right? Do you skip the blocks where we have work zones? Is there a way that we can coordinate so those street sweepers sweep outside on the street side of our work zones as well? Our folks are charged with cleaning up within 3 feet of all sides of our work zone. They need to maintain it. We sort of broke the status quo, so we need to maintain it. That said, it's dangerous for folks to go out with a broom and a dustpan to sweep on the street side. So I'm working with DSNY to see if we can't get some of those street sweepers to tackle that as well too. Because what that'll help is not only the appearance, but that fugitive, like the and I'm not disparaging anybody, but the Dunkin' Donuts cup or the McDonald's bag, right? It blows around and it collects in areas and it looks worse than it actually is. So we are working on it. We will continue to work on it. And I see my friend Leslie Cologne around the corner there. Leslie feeding me this information. Oh, really? Well, so what I was going to say is Leslie feeds me pictures. But you all can send us pictures. It's not your job, but certainly we appreciate the extra set of eyes. And we have people out there looking, but if you see something, please say something. You can send us photos. So this way here, when somebody says, hey, there's an issue on 109th and 2nd, and we go and look at the south side of 109th, and we're like, geez, it looks pretty clean here, but it's actually on the north side. So there's no ambiguity. If you send me a photo, I know exactly where to look or where to tell my guys to clean up, and we're happy to do that. So again, we do these good neighbor walks. I think it was mentioned, the Good Neighbor Initiative, and we look for those quality of life issues. But the more eyes, the better. So we appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Are you ready?
Well, she got an essay.
So I just looked at my email and I noticed that at 4:06 this afternoon, MTA is going to be closing off the walkway at Franklin Plaza on the west side from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., which is less than 24 hours before we can circulate it to the complex. That's one.
Sorry, what was that?
The walkway.
There's a walkway.
There's a walkway on 107th Street on Second Avenue on the west side of the block. It's
It's on
very, very
East and
narrow,
west side.
but they're closing the west side.
No, no, understand.
From 7 to 4 p.m. That's less than 24 hours before we can circulate it throughout the complex. Now in the morning, these kids are still going to school. They're still elderly going to doctor's appointments. So now they're gonna walk through and they're gonna be like, oh, now which way do I go? They can't go right, they can't go left, they have to go through the complex to 106th Street, which is also closed off because of this new construction that started out to make this train station, which I have a question about that, to walk through the middle of the street, to cross the street, because now they can't access the bus stop. That's one. All of a sudden, now this, you remove the benches on 106th Street. You remove all, thank you for that, because you got most of the homeless removed from my bench on 106. However, they have filtered into the complex, but the fencing and the, what do they call those things, the Jersey barricades?
Yeah.
Now you put them on our grass. That wasn't agreed upon. It was only up to the fencing where the benches were that you were supposed to go to. So now that we beautify our landscape, now you put all your construction on our grass, all like within 10 feet of the residential windows on the first floor. So that's gonna cause a problem. That's gonna cause dust, that's gonna cause vibration, that's gonna cause the lighting when you're doing all your construction. So now the people on the first floor, which are elderly on that side, because my mother lives in that building, they're gonna be inundated with all this vibration and all this construction that you're doing too close to that building. That's two. Okay? That is two. Okay.
That's 6 and 2.
No, but that's
five and one.
yeah, I'm trying to like, do things really close. Thank you, that's the word. So I took a picture today. Of the work that's being done gravely close to my gas plant. It's right there. It's right up against it. Then if you go, you might hit a pot. You might hit a pole. And everything is above ground and it's exposed. There's only a fence there. There's no brick. There's no anything to protect my piping in that parking lot. Yes, the residents have not moved their parking spots because we have not found any parking spaces for them to move to. Also, the sewage drainage, that's where those 12 to 15 cars are parked, continues to flood the parking space. It's never happened before. We've had snow, we've had rain, we have Superstorm Sandy. It never flooded that corner. Now, every time it rains, flood. Now all the cars are parking in the driveway, so now nobody can access to get out because they move forward because the sewage there is not draining adequately. Never happened before. We've already snaked it down. We pumped out the water, but when it rains like it did the other day, it's
No, I just want to, for a quick point of clarification, I'm just trying to understand, that's inside your parking lot?
inside the parking lot.
No, not the flooding, the basin you're talking about is a sewer on the corner of 108th and Second, or inside your parking lot?
Inside the parking lot. That's another issue. Okay, like I always tell you, you don't live there, you just work there. Now, the environmental assessment of the asbestos matter, we've never received. I have a man that's on the third floor facing that parking lot. He had open heart surgery. He's on a mask, a CPAP mask. And he says, I can smell the dust that comes, and he keeps his windows closed. He can't open up his windows at all. He's on the third floor, and I can't. What is being done to mitigate all the dust that's being done that goes into his apartment and in the future? I hope the man does not die because of this, because now it's going to be a bigger issue because he just had open heart surgery and he's on an oxygen mask. Okay, then all the employees that are blocking the residential parking, now they got them off of Second Avenue. Now they're running on 108, blocking all the 3 parking lots on 108. I take pictures, and Hector must be pissed because here's another one. I have a truck. I have a white car. I have an orange car.
You're not worried about me being pissed?
Because I don't have this number. But I should do. You should be with it. I have your email. But I'm always like, yesterday I was out at 6 o'clock in the morning campaigning, and I was like, man, these guys are here early. Click, 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 click. I was out there. Then on 109, they were coming in, pulling up like, okay, halfway on the sidewalk, halfway on the street. The school buses had to
dropped off the kids yet, because this was 6 a.m. They put their little orange tag in the window, their little vest, put on their helmet, put on their boots, go into Annabelle, get a cup of coffee, and they disappear. I don't know where they go, but they go down up Second Avenue. I'm like, wow, this is fun. Now the buses come. The buses are all lined up and block all of Second Avenue. I'm like, oh my God. And they stay there for like 45 minutes, not 20 minutes, 45 minutes. Because the matron takes the kids off to take them off the bus, they go in. But they stay there.
That's
Then another
I'm
one.
gonna call a shot clock violation.
Okay, that's
You're at the very least.
Yes.
At the very least. You need
But these are the
let's-
things that
I
are.
understand.
It's on 109 and Second Avenue,
So at the school.
right at the school.
And we know
Because
that.
they blocked.
We
they
already know
blocked
that's
up.
happening. We brought that up.
Right, but this is like continuous. Oh, and the garbage? Oh, this chicken bones, paper on 192nd on the east side. And those are all my issues. And the 6 million is not good enough for us.
If you want to, I mean, I'm more than happy, you have my email, if you wanna send those all to me, I can, tackle or, put belt all those for you. Just to respond to a couple of them now, not in any particular order, but, the catch basin issue inside your parking lot is news to me, and it's good awareness for the contract 3 team, who I think is on the Zoom or the virtual side of things.
I got pictures.
But that would be helpful because if it was on the street side of the parking lot, then I would certainly reach out to my counterparts at DEP to come up and investigate why that catch basin is not operating properly. Since it's a private catch basin on your property, not 100% sure, but I will bring it up. We have our Franklin Plaza coordination meeting tomorrow with Franklin Plaza, so I'll bring that up with facilities management.
Hit the cancel. The cancel.
No, I need you fast.
Oh, jeez. What's happening?
Leslie, send it to me. Leslie, send it to me, so I can bring it up during our Franklin Plaza coordination meeting. With regard to the dust monitoring, there is dust monitoring presently going on. There was asbestos monitoring going on when there was asbestos producing or mitigating activities. So if we were moving any of the utilities that may have had asbestos insulation around them, then they were done, that utility relocation was done, or the removal of that asbestos material was done in a very strict, confined protocol. And that activity is over with for now, until there's another situation. I don't know, Matt, if you know if there's anything coming up. There will be more abatement situations, but there isn't presently. And there has been no elevated readings in that area that I'm aware of. Again, if there's a situation, we had a situation, I don't want to put anybody on blast, but there was a resident of Franklin Plaza, Ms. Encarnacion, who had a lot of medical concerns and issues, and she, had a lot of dust that was collecting on her windowsill. So we had, our team and DEP go in and test, and there was nothing for our Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, not DEP, apologies. DEP checked the drainage for us. But
she was on the other side, above.
On the west side, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're happy to do that. Again, either have the gentleman reach out to us, or
I mean, the MTA meets with Franklin Plaza more than they meet with us. Yeah. So they're definitely, they're gonna have their disconnect, and something I brought up to the leadership today in the MTA, where there's a disconnect between the board, the chair of the board of Franklin Plaza. It seems to be like the board is not getting the information that they should be getting. How you guys address that, will be up to you, but you should be aware that there seems to be a significant disconnect. My understanding is Leslie's on that board.
I'm on that board.
And she's always asking us more questions here. You guys meet
every other week,
every other week, which is significant. We meet here once a month. So a lot of these questions should be presented to that board, and they should have these answers. And you may be having to formulate another way, or maybe every other week meet with the entire board and not just with the chair, to kind of make sure that all the information is being disseminated correctly.
I'll just go through a few things. When Jose and I put this essentially defunct task force back in place, there were a lot of issues. And I've been probably one of the louder people about those issues, but I think we also do have to recognize when there aren't improvements. Jose and I did walk through with Matt, Joe, and the team, and I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of issues still there, and I think they're aware of them, but there have been improvements made, which means not to stop doing this, but to keep doing this, but to recognize that there are improvements. I will say that it's helpful when the public comes out. And we're going to do a better job of letting you all know when these meetings are to be heard, because sometimes when it is just the board saying this, while we are the voice of the public, it may start to sound like we're speaking for nobody. It helps when the public comes out and says it themselves. I have a million questions. Joe has them all, so I did have a lot of questions about a lot of specific things, but they will answer those in time. And then, just regarding signage, I just had a couple things. Maybe more ADA signage. We talked about that on the walk, and where there are vacant stores, possibly for them putting up a for rent sign. I don't know how easy it's going to be to rent anything right now, but
So one of that was a question you brought up in our dialogue, so I can respond to the whole group here, especially if it's helpful to anybody here or online. So typically we work with operating businesses, right, to try to help them create exposure. But we have in the past, it's not without precedent, where we've worked with a developer who has units to rent or a vacant storefront. We will put up a sign. We haven't been approached, so we don't know that the person is actively looking for that. So if you do have owners that you want to connect us with to do so, I'm more than happy to help them. If they have hey, I'm bringing a food concept or a barbershop or whatever, they've got graphics they would like us to, so that we can help them create awareness. Happy to do that. So.
I've seen some that have their own little sign, so I mean, they usually have a number. I have to call myself, but thank you for that. And then I did send a letter and to the MTA and to all our electeds, not just local but citywide, about this idea of an art corridor that I had. On 125th by Lexington, all those murals that were originally taken down and put back up. There's the signage for the small businesses. There's a lot of fencing where there aren't small businesses or there are empty spots, and it would help, I think, the morale of the community to see, something nice, something beautiful where it's fencing right now, even if it's nicely wrapped with green wrapping, and it would activate our local artists. And my idea was a dollar for dollar match for the MTA and the local electeds, but I wish Porfirio was in the room right now, but maybe they do watch our meetings. The borough president, I think, had $50 million in discretionary funding, dedicated it all to arts and culture. And so the entire discretionary funding of the Manhattan Borough President was going to arts and culture for this year. And so there is an opportunity for some of that $50 million to be poured into some level of beautification in this community. They've received my letter. They're gonna, I believe, maybe even set up a meeting with the MTA Arts and Design, whatever, to start. I know you guys have your own ideas, but we could collaborate there. And then the last thing I'll bring up, and I spoke to Matt and Joe, and we're gonna have some type of meeting on this, have this task force in the coming months about the real estate team at the MTA and the what happens afterwards with the sites that are going to have potential development on them. And I know we're ways away, but as we've seen with this task force, we should have been talking about a lot of this 5 years ago, and we didn't. So we could say the same thing when that development comes around in 5 or 6 years. So while things might seem very premature, usually they're not. So I will say, though, it was a very encouraging walkthrough. We're going to do them more often. And I think we got to be critical, but at times we do have to recognize when we see improvements. And I will say, I've seen things and heard things today. The CUNY study I didn't know about till now, but that were directly a request from this task force. And I've been critical about our elected and everything. I will give credit to everyone at this table that this task force, in my opinion, has been one of the louder advocates of anybody in this community, and I am proud of all you guys, and I think we can keep this up. I think we're being heard, so thank you.
I love We have a question from Diane Collier on the line. Diane?
Can you hear me now?
We can, yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Adam. Joe, could you turn to the page that has the local hiring on it? Okay, two questions. Which workforce one are you going to be working with?
So there's two Workforce One arms that we're working with now. One is the small business side, to try to help and figure out what we can do on the small business side. But then there is the other one on the workforce development grant side, to talk about, creating job opportunities and things of that nature.
Is that located on the west side?
I don't know, frankly, where they are respectively housed out of, but I can tell you the individuals' names.
Okay. And Adam, you know where I'm heading on this one, right? With the questioning that I'm asking. The apprentice or pre-apprentice programs in East Harlem, are they funded?
By who?
I'm asking, are they funded?
So the pre-apprenticeship programs, there's a host of pre-apprenticeship programs that are part of the Building and Construction Trades Council of Greater New York. Some of those pre-apprenticeship programs are funded, operated, guided by Building and Construction Trades. There are a couple, and no coincidence, they are two of the ones that are in East Harlem. One is new non-traditional employment for women, and the other one is pathways to apprenticeship for formerly criminally injustice involved. So one of the conversations that we had with Workforce One was, despite the fact that those two entities are underneath the BCTC umbrella, where we have tried to work with BCTC to possibly fund classes of apprenticeships, create a stream of folks to go in there and get into their pre-apprenticeship programs. If BCTC says to us, no, we're good for now, we have a steady enrollment, new and pathways to apprenticeship are not funded by BCTC and would be more inclined potentially to collaborate with the MTA, especially if we're going to be funding some of that programming. So we're exploring those ideas now.
Okay, and should the community board be reaching out to new and pathways to apprentice?
At this point, I'm not sure. They're more than welcome to, but I don't think we need the push necessarily right now. I can report at June, so at the July meeting, I can report on what we've heard from those groups as far as possibly collaborating. And then if we need a push or to bring them to the table, then we can.
Right, it's just based on experience that I've had at the community board with local hiring, that the apprenticeship programs help, because if they don't have the skill set, they're not going to get the job.
Yeah, that's exactly the intention of both the BCT's programs and those programs. It's to give you the precursor skills to get into those apprenticeships, right? It's to get you as ready as possible.
Right. All right, so I just wanted to get it on the record about the apprenticeship programs and the funding, because that's critical. This is a 10-year project. At the end of the 10 years, we should have young people as well as adults who can move on to greater, better jobs coming out of the community. That should be one of the benefits, that the community reaps from all of the aggravation that obviously we're going to be going through for the next few years. Adam and Jose, I bring up Workforce One again because, as you both know, there was to be an East Harlem Workforce One office that was part of the East Harlem rezoning. I think it's important that we follow up, or you follow up on that, to make sure that it's been funded. I know it has been. It would behooves us to have it located locally to address not just these issues, but other issues in the community.
Absolutely. We will follow up on that. Thank you, Diane.
All right. And that's pretty much what I have. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Diane.
I want to add to apprenticeship programs. I think we should be leading toward the licensed professions as the apprenticeship sakes for and needs for a licensed unionized position with the skill to match.
We're gonna transition now, Sheriff Ben Mayor has done some work. Could we pull this up?
We're gonna start the June tab on the bottom. So I created this spreadsheet to help us better track our concerns, and this will also then we'll have a better documentation list that has everything that we need to share that with the MTA. Our hope is that people on the committee are filling this out throughout the month after seeing these things. But just to walk everyone through it, we have on the first column has a list of different categories of concerns. So dust, smoke, air quality, environmental, garbage and litter, lighting and public safety, parking, traffic and congestion, noise, walkway and accessibility, school safety, signage and fence routes, blasting, jobs and local hiring, and then other if there's something that does not fall into one of those categories. So what you can do is when you see a concern, bring it here, find the category that best represents it. If it falls into multiple, please don't duplicate concerns, because then it just is a little more difficult to address them. But find the category that it best represents, and then put the dates for if it was just one time, or if it's noticed it for a week, you can put the whole week that you noticed the concern, a brief description or the exact location, so include which side of the street, north, south, east, west, cross streets, the dates, the dates, the details of the concern, so try to be as specific as possible. Your name, which if we need any follow-up, we will use it for that, and then you can add any notes, photos as well. If you come here and you notice someone else has already put in your concern, there's no need again to duplicate it, but you can put in the notes. I'll say like, I noticed this as well. And yes, you can add photos, and then you can add additional rows. There's a lot of noise complaints that we're going beyond for. You can add additional rows, but I will send this out at least once a month to remind folks we can put our concerns and complaints in there. There's will be an opportunity at our meeting to discuss them, but hopefully this will help streamline things and then have just better documentation shared. And then on the first tab, there are instructions if you forgot anything I just said, or if you need an example, there's an example there as well. Are there any questions?
I love this. Yeah, it's very cool. We could also connect this with forms and send it out to, obviously this could be a more internal for the committee. And if we could connect it to the form, to like Google Forms, we could send it out to the public or have our Franklin about the rep over here. Distribute to her community, or we can distribute it up and down and make it, but I love the tool. Amazing. Great job.
That was how the public was going to be able to use this also.
Yeah, we could definitely formulate it, something that we've done with needs, for instance, where you have this in the background, the forms next to it, and all that.
Yeah.
We had a few other.
That was my thought. And then who is inputting the staff?
This one's more for the committee, I would imagine.
I think for the public, like, it will take a little more, even if we have everyone do it, if there's like overlaps, you want to consolidate those, I think we can have a form for that, but this one at least is just for the committees.
For all of us that walk through there, see something, we can put it out. I'm sure that that's really curving this out extensively, but and I love the fact that we can add pictures to it.
And it's in the drive right now. I'll also send the link.
Oh, this is great. No, I appreciate
In our
it.
folder.
And we'll play with this as we go along. This also helps to track certain concerns, right? So there are certain top concerns that we're tracking, something from out track smaller concerns, and see how things have been progressing and giving the DMT a lot of compliments today, but yeah, I don't wanna get them too. Big happy.
I would say that, it's a great tool. We use something very similar to track our good neighbor initiative stuff. Not only does it help sort of keep everything, in space, it helps you identify trends, like what's going the right way, what's going the wrong way, so.
Let me go add a column on page complete.
Yeah, like,
Okay, it's
I'm gonna say it.
completed.
But I was gonna say, the column that, it's been, that in progress or whatever. Thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Help.
Hey, let me make sure that we don't have anyone else. Seems that we are all right. Well, thank you so much for tonight's meeting. It was a very productive meeting. It was great having you all here. We have some of the public. Anything you guys wanted to say, mention? It's coming in, but are you just here observing or?
No, thank you. This is very enlightening.
All right, perfect.
Well, I actually have a question. I might have missed this. I just came in a little like 30 minutes ago. Did y'all talk about like my understanding that there's basically taking or some like exercise of eminent domain for some businesses along Second Ave? What is the plan for the residential units? That's
So all of the, fairly confident that all of the property, both residential and commercial, that we need to advance this project has already been acquired.
Okay.
What we are in the process of doing now is working through the relocation. So we have a dedicated relocation consultant that works with, so if you're a resident, we'll work with you to identify similar accommodations in terms of size and, monthly rent type of situation.
Okay.
And then we'll present those options to you. We will also pay for all of your moving expenses to move into that new location.
Okay.
We'll assist with the move. I won't, but we'll have a mover assist with the move.
Okay.
And similarly for businesses, there's a similar plan, but it also takes into consideration fixtures. So there's an appraisal of fixtures, like if you're a food service business and there's commercial ovens and things like that. But it takes into consideration those things. The last bit before, because I know it sounded like you had a follow-up, was especially on the residential side, if there is a delta between, we can't find, you're paying $700 a month in a rent stabilized apartment right now. We can't find you a similar accommodation. We can only find you one for $1,000. We'll pay the differential of that rent for the new space, depending on your age and what your income level is, possibly for perpetuity.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, my only follow up was going to be like, what is the largest residential building that you have? Do you know how many units the biggest one has been so far?
The residential units have not been big. I mean, in the sense that we've identified vacant lots and vacant buildings initially. I believe the largest property in terms of units was 5, and then the distinction there is sometimes the family size is disproportionate.
Yeah,
Like,
5 units.
Second Avenue is mostly farms.
Yeah.
The density
Yeah.
there is very high.
Yeah, just wondering if there's any basements or basements.
some of them have basements.
But no, like basement apartments.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thanks.
I don't think that. If it was, it'll be illegal.
All right, perfect. All right. With that, we are going to do our roll call. Ready?
Jose Alvarado, Leslie Colon,
Present.
yes, excuse, Jennifer Meyer, Jose Ramos, excuse, Beverly Pavone, Asher Rodriguez, Cynthia Olivia is absent, Olivia Vasquez is here virtually, but.
All right, with that, we adjourn the meeting. Oh, you're. Yeah, you can take your. Oh, you were here. Good meeting. Thank you. Lord, and everyone.
They're always good here.
I know, right?
Yeah.
When do we have a bat?